Hello and welcome to this discussion by the English Constitutional Society and the English Constitutional Party. My name is Will Coleshill. I've been kindly asked to moderate this meeting, and today we have our guests in. Would you guys like to introduce yourselves?
I'm Colin Birch. I'm standing for the Romford constituency.
I'm Joseph Greenhalgh. I'm standing for the St Helens North constituency.
And I am Graham Moore, standing in Chorley in Lancashire. And one of our operatives and members is sadly not well today. He's on dialysis, but we've got his little bell there because he's known as Brett, and he's the town crier, but he's not well, so he's not here.
So, gentlemen, would you like to tell us a little bit about what got you guys interested in politics and maybe a little bit more about your backgrounds?
Do you want to start?
Well, I started off as a socialist, forcing labour most of my life. Probably not a proper socialist, but... And then I was looking for something else. I was, later on, after the Blur thing, we were all taking on a ride that... to our detriment, I think. And then I came up against a couple more parties. And then eventually, the one that sounded the best to me was the English Constitution Party and the English Constitution Society. And it seemed to do more for me because some of it I hadn't learnt in school at all. And I'm finding out that this should have been taught to us at school is absolutely scandalous that it hasn't. And that's why I want my grandchildren and their children to learn it at school if and when we can get it back in the education system.
Okay, well, I really got into politics around the vote for Brexit. I was shocked that once we got the vote, nothing happened. That's what really spurred me on. At that point, I joined UKIP because I thought, I'm going to push for this. The people have spoken. We're not going to stand for it. The Conservatives just kept dragging their feet. They was determined that we weren't going to get the benefits from Brexit. So they've done everything in their power to stop us getting the benefits from it. They're telling us there's no benefit, but there is, and they've just hid it. My son was more politically minded than me, and I used to go to rallies and things just so that I could film it for him so he could to watch the stuff. But once I got into UKIP, Gerard Batten took over because Farage had left at that point, and I've continued ever since. UKIP fell apart, really, and I couldn't stay with them. But I discovered Graham before the 2016 referendum. But I lost touch because his channels kept disappearing and he was hopping between channels. But then when I discovered him on Rumble, and that was it. I had to do the English Constitution Party. I'd learnt about the Constitution. I didn't just take it on face value. Everything he said, I looked up online. I've got downloaded all the copies of the Magna Carta. I looked into the Magna Carta, bothered to read them. The Bill of Rights, bothered to look at it. The Acts of Settlement, you can get it online. You can't get all of it, but what you can get is interesting. Graham puts the rest to you because he's got all the old books. So he can add the pieces that are missing. And yeah, once I learnt about Graham, there's no looking back.
So what gave you gents an interest in our constitution then?
Me, I was interested in history at school, and I've always been interested on when Discovery came. I thought that was fascinating in the 80s, and then, like I said, I was into a couple of other parties, and then as Colin says, came across Graham and the knowledge and what I've missed and what many other people are missing and should know was fantastic to me.
I never really thought about it. I just started to watch Graham, and everything he said, I looked up above it to look up the paperwork. And when you read, it's not like the straw man, free man of the land sort of nonsense. You watch them videos and you think, I can see right through this, you know. But the stuff that Graham was talking about, I'm completely ignorant of it. Oh, I knew about the Magna Carta. But then when I checked on it, yeah, it was there. These things actually exist. You know, I knew I wasn't being lied to. So that's why I went for the English Constitution Party.
I know there's a lot of false information out there on about common law, and there are a lot of people who build sort of personality cults around, oh, I know this and I know the secret ways and you've got to say just these secret words. But I think Graham often does set himself apart from other people because he has all of the receipts. Could you tell us, what is it that draws you to our constitution, and what is it that sets our constitution aside and above the rest around the world?
It protects the individual against the state. That's what it's there for. The state has become tyrannical. You know, the state is the enemy of the people now, because they're attacking our individual rights. The whole point of it is that the individual is powerful. I always, as a youngster, believed the law was there to prosecute me. Yeah, be careful of the law. It's there to prosecute. No, that's wrong. The law is the birthright of an Englishman. It's there to make me powerful. It's there to make me be able to stand up against the state. That's the power of the English Constitution. And you've got to ask yourself, what is the function of government? Are they meant to be doing this stuff? Because I don't believe they are. They're not meant to be locking you down. That isn't the function of government. Yeah, if the function of government should be protecting our borders, making sure we're not being invaded. It's not to lock the people down and it mandate vaccines. That just isn't right. It isn't. The function of government isn't control. Yeah, it's not about controlling the people. You're not meant to be controlling their speech. You're not meant to be controlling how they think. You know what they do, their movements. It's nothing to do with that. Let the people can look after themselves. You know, let them get on with their life. They won't revolt if you just let them get on with life. But there's something going on in Westminster, and they just want to control us. It's like the control freaks have rose to the top, like scum floating to the top. And the Constitution, like Graham says, the Constitution is the solution.
Well, but Graham's told us many times about when he thinks that the British started really having a go at us, and obviously you can't disagree, but I think it was even before then, before this, within. When they came to power in 1706, 1707, I think I'm going off with what Graham we've said and what we've looked up when we've looked at the Constitution, and what he said is right. It really started then, and its momentum came to the fore in the 19th century, and since the 50s, and the Labour Party usually brag about how many seats they've been getting since the 1930s. We're going up and up and up. That's, you know, and when you've read the Fabian Society manual, you know that they're there to take control of you, not for you to think for yourself, and not for you to earn what you spend, what you earn, you know what I mean, spend what you earn or whatever, and they're tying your hands.
So I do want to go on to some of the threats, but before we go on to some of the threats, I want to sort of clarify, what are some of the rights that you really value and you're fighting for, and what is it that really sets our constitution aside as being better than others?
Well, the right to freedom of speech, freedom of thought. They're even being arrested for that now. Freedom of, you know, all your thoughts. I mean, there's some of the other day, the guy said, look at this, and it was Criminal Act 1988, and the copper isn't allowed to forcefully or coerce you into doing something you don't want to do. I've read it yesterday. So, you know, and I think there was 1977 Criminal Justice Act, I think.
Criminal Justice Act 1988.
1998.
Section 134.
And the court, I think it's the courts.
Graham, do you want to fill us in on the rest of that?
Well, so there's a number of points to the English Constitution. The first and most important are the three most important rights that are with the people to protect you from the state. The first is the jury right. The second is the power of arrest. And you must remember the power of your vote. So all of those three things are under attack. You've currently got the Lady Chief Justice telling us she wants to abolish juries completely. People need to understand when you take the oath as a juror, you and that group of people are the most powerful group of people in this country, more powerful than the King of England, than the Chief Justice and the whole of Parliament combined. You can nullify the law if you believe in your own conscience that what is going on and the person standing in that dock is right, and with your conscience, you find him not guilty. People need to understand you cannot appeal a jury verdict. If it is not guilty, that's the verdict of the jury. That power comes from our Constitution. And then you've got the power of arrest. The difference between you as a subject of the realm and a police constable is the police constable takes an oath. They can perjure their oath, which is petite treason. And you can take everything off them, including their warrant. The only difference between the power of arrest of a police constable and yourself is a police constable doesn't have to see the crime being committed. You can report it to him or her, right? But if you see, as an individual, a crime being committed, it is within your power to arrest the person committing the crime. And that includes if you see a police officer committing a crime, you can arrest the police officer. So people need to understand the power of that. And the third and most important, valued, people have died for this and died for us, is the power of your vote. And it doesn't matter how old you are. If you're 98 and your limbs are aching and you've got arthritis and everything is going on in your life as an old person, your vote is as strong as the 18-year-old that you used to be. And people must remember that the Greys hold the power in this country. And we have been conned by a socialist system. And when we've got to the age that we have, they then don't want to pay us. And what we're saying, as a political party, we're not having it. You pay us what we're worth, what we've paid into this system through our entire working life, which is why we support, and we're the only group of people supporting, pensioners and people on benefits and disability. There is nothing and no shame in benefits. When you've worked all your life into a system that said, we'll help you, we'll give you this later on in life. Now's the time to hand it over. Not to walk away by not voting, because that vote is your power.
To give you some idea about the pensions, I've at the age where I have to work another year before I get my pension. My wife, they've up to the retirement age from 60 to 66. So that's 6 years for her, an extra year for me. The pensions are roughly about £11,000. So you're looking at £77,000 they've stole off of me and my wife. Yeah, £77,000. That's not small potatoes, but that people don't realise it. And that's the type of thing they do. Under Labour, they're openly saying they are going to raid the pension pots. That's theft. That people have, so they've encouraged you to save all your life for your retirement, and you've done the right thing. You've put your money away, saved it. Now there's a nice kitty there. They want to steal it. Galloway, his party, he wants a one-off wealth tax. Just once. He's just going to steal your money the once. And mind you, once you've spent it, he might have to come back for some more. You know, because once you've done it the once, you've set the precedent. You might as well carry on doing it. You know. But getting back to your question, it's freedom of movement. When they had lockdown, no, you can't just lock people down. The sweeping decisions they made in Parliament, I had a disabled son, yeah, we was 24-hour care. He was confined to a wheelchair. Because of lockdown, he couldn't get his wheelchair serviced, so it's breaking down. So we was pushing the wheelchair around. I was driving the wheelchair for him. His ability, his freedoms were taken away. He was trapped in his body, and his freedoms are taken away from him from a daft decision they made because they're frightened of catching a cold. That's what this was all about. People were frightened of catching a cold. Oh, it might have been a bad cold, but it was still a cold. But they've relabelled it as COVID, yeah? Because they did what they did, he couldn't go out, yeah? He couldn't, and that's what's really spurred me on. And also the mandating of the vaccines. That isn't the function of Parliament. We have bodily autonomy. That's one of our rights. Yeah, it was all wrong. It was disgusting. And that's what's really spurred me on. And I mean, I was talking to people over the park, and it was like I was talking to people that was hypnotised, really.
That would be one of the core things within the Constitution. I've got it just here, that the power of dispensing with laws is illegal. So this concept of emergency situations, allowing the government to do whatever they like, I guess that would be a core thing for you guys,
Yeah.
a core reason that you're standing up.
Oh, yeah.
It shouldn't have happened, for a full stop. My father was, he went into hospital with an infection, water infection. Next minute, we're giving him drugs to finishing him off.
Midazolam.
I don't know, I can't say if it was that, because it wasn't on the, I don't think it was on the death certificate what it was. But I know from my grandmother when they get, I think some opiates when they give them many years ago in the 80s. She was saying, but she had cancer. My dad only had dementia. You know what I mean? He only had dementia. And when it first came about the lockdowns, I looked up what the virus was doing. And like I said before about the Discovery channels in the 80s, which I thought was amazing. They were turning everything what was said then in science on its head for a cold, right? And I looked up what a virus did, and it's episodes, and when you're sweating and everything else in hot sweats, that is the virus dying. That's what, and I've read that, with what they call peer papers. Peer-reviewed papers. That's what it is, and now they're telling us it's the worst virus ever. And then when you're finding out it's been a manipulated virus with with what I've read, gain of function and all that type of thing, and they're still promoting it. That beyond belief.
When we was younger. You had three types. You had a cold, a stinking cold, or you had man flu. Yeah, that was the 3 degrees of a cold. But they've changed that to COVID. Now nobody catches a cold. Oh, I had COVID. I had COVID. No, you've got a cold. No, it was all over my body. All right, yeah, you had a bad cold. That's all it is. COVID. What they've done, they've changed the lexicon. And because of that, nobody will ever say a cold. In all the councils, it's all about COVID. It's not about colds. Yeah.
No, I mean, hay fever suddenly disappeared.
Yeah, the flu did.
Hay fever, the ordinary flu,
yeah.
A and B, all disappeared.
So just to make sure, we're going to emphasise this point because I think it needs emphasising. Us and our group was at virtually every march. Those large marches with nearly 1 million people and sometimes over 1 million people. I personally walked for over 9 hours in the heat of London with people marching there. Our flags were there, our banners, our Magna Carta banners were up there. Everyone could see who we was. We had loads of support and loads of people. And then after, and they have trickled down that repugnance that the people felt. The BBC, the mainstream media, none of them really reported. The people who were reporting on the events were us and people like Wills, right? Our people were smashed to bits, literally, by riot squad when we are non-violent processors against the government taking our rights. And people need to understand we're still there. You're being conned yet again into believing that these other people and these other systems care about you. They do not care about you. We are normal, everyday people. We are not politicians. We believe in our rights, our constitutional rights, and believe that that should be taught to the next generation. We are the generation that should be passing the eternal flame of freedom to the next generation, not extinguishing it. And that's the main point. We are normal people. But just let me say about COVID, because this is crucially important. I see what they did to people. You can't go out. You've got to be locked up. Everyone needed vitamin D, so what did they do? Stay in your house. Don't come out in the sun, right? Vitamin D, and especially, and people better listen to this, to black and brown people, right? They need more vitamin D because of where England is situated on the globe, right? Go and look up in the information. They all tell you that, right? The major point is, when places like India, and I think it's called Protégé, right? 270 million people. Guess what they was given? And it wasn't the COVID jab. Zerdo kit. What does it contain? Ivermectin. What does it contain? Antibiotics. What does it contain? Zinc. Do you know how many people we supplied this to free of charge in this country and saved people's lives? And was threatened with imprisonment by the very regulators who were controlled by the pharmaceutical companies. They threatened me with imprisonment because I was saving the lives of my countrymen and women, and I didn't care what colour you was. Let me just say this to you. 2 people with OBEs who were black asked me for it, and they got sent it free of charge. Ivermectin, right? Ivermectin, there it is. It won a Nobel Peace Prize. It should be in everyone's cupboard. It is not a drug, it's a molecule. I want you to know something.
Not
right?
a Nobel Peace Prize, it's just a Nobel Prize, I think.
Nobel Prize for medicine. Apologies. Right, so ivermectin. Understand it's a molecule, not a drug. It's not harmful. In fact, billions of doses all over the world, right? And it's funny how it correlates with Africa. Really? What's the correlation? Well, the people taking it in Africa have got less cancers. So when my cousin had cancer in early 2020, and by the way, I was the first person that had gone through every medical documentation I could read on this stuff and started to promote it before all the big boys in alternative media did, right? I'm going to tell you a quick story. My cousin had terminal stage 4 small cell lung cancer. She had 6 weeks to live. She's 66, or was 66 then, right? She told me she had cancer and she had 6 weeks to live, stage 4. Small cell lung cancer, if people don't know this, in America it's known as the Terminator, right? I said to her, do you trust me? She said, yeah. I said, I'm going to send you something. I sent her 6 months worth of this, ivermectin, apricot kernels, and zinc. I said, take 120 milligrams a day of this, right? With the zinc, and also take it with the apricot kernels, right? Month later, she has a scan. What happens? Her cancer is gone. I said, don't tell your oncologist. They will stop your medication. They will stop helping you. Keep doing it. She went back 3 months later. Cancer was in complete remission. You're talking about a terminal cancer at stage 4 that was going to take her life in 6 weeks. And this stuff is the stuff that stopped it. Let me tell you, people out there, you are being lied to, and you are being lied to by the National Health Service. You're being lied to by this government because they are controlled by the pharmaceutical companies. And the only people standing up for you are us. We're the only people that have been threatened with imprisonment for giving this people to pensioners during lockdown. I had people crying on the phone to me, will you please give it to me? And it was only our members that was helping out that we could get it to them. So I'm just telling you, we're being lied to by the National Health Service. I'm going to say the last thing on this subject. Winston Churchill said, right, in the debates at the time, that the National Health Service was the first run the first run on a socialist ladder. The only thing I disagree with, it was the second run, because the first run was the 1911 Parliament Act that took away our rights and that started paying politicians and created a political class. They're the people we need to get rid of, and we need to keep normal, everyday people like us in the Commons, and then we'll be saving our own lives.
It's also the propaganda that was pushed. The government had a message that they was going to push out. The BBC went along with it. And within Parliament, there was never any opposition. You never heard a single voice speak out against what happened. You know, they all, lockstep, all went along with it. I think it's illegal for a government to use propaganda on its people. It isn't the function of the government. You know, why are they using propaganda? Because it was all lies. It has to be propaganda. It was all lies. Do you want to add anything?
Well, Rockefeller, was it 2010, was the in lockstep, and that's what every country has been in since.
Brett is another classic example of what's going on there. He's terminally ill. He's on dialysis, and they want to stop his PIP. Right now, he needs that money. He can't work. He's been a plumber all his life. He's a proper grafter. Not one of them people. He doesn't even want benefits. He couldn't come today because he is majorly ill. Yet they want to stop his benefits after all the money he's put into the system. And then when you look around and you see all these other people coming across the channel, coming in on an aircraft, and they're all getting the benefits of what we've paid into that socialist system for someone else's benefit. No, that's not the way it works.
So a challenge that some people would put to you is they would say a socialist system can never really work. So, and they would also say that this is essentially a Ponzi scheme. What happens is you've got a very few old people when they first bring it in. The older population gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And what's happening, as we see with the mass migration, is housing costs are going up. All of the wages are being depreciated. Would you not say it's true that you guys have paid into a Ponzi scheme, and that at the end of the day,
did we have any option to pay it, but to pay in? Because you've got PAYE. They take this money off of you at source. So it isn't like you've got an option to pay tax. We shouldn't have to pay. The tax system should be set up to allow us to have the option. So if we disagree with the tax, if we don't want to take part in it, we don't have to pay it. Yeah, but you've got no voice. They just take it, and we have no way of regulating it because they're setting the benchmark for it. If they say they need more, they just increase that tax, and that has a knock-on effect to the economy. So what they did with the age of pensioners, they've raised the women's age up. It went from 60 to 62. Now it's at 66, and they've increased the man's age. Why didn't they bring the age of retirement down for men and raise the retirement age up for women and make them equal at 63?
Well, what is it for men now? Is it 70?
66.
So
66. I've just retired in January. Well, February, a bit later. January, I retired. 66.
So is it now equal between men and women?
Yeah, they're both at 66.
Are they at 60? Are they?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Because you want equality. Women want equality, so they've had to. But what would have been fair, an equitable system, would have been to lower the retirement age of men and increase the retirement age of women. They would have met at 63, and it wouldn't have had such a great impact on them. Yeah, I would have put it this way: I would have saved £22,000, but it would have cost me wife £22,000. So, £33,000. So roughly, but no. They're all about the take. It's all about the taxation is theft. That's all it is. It's theft. It's theft off of you're taking the person's produce. That's all you're doing.
Fruits of their labour.
Yeah, fruits of their labour, exactly. So as a farmer, I have a field of cabbages that are grown. Taxman comes along and says, I want 20% of them. I said, no. They're mine. I grew them. That's my possessions. That's mine. So he goes away. The instant you harvest them and trade them in for cash, you sell them, you've got cash now, then the tax man comes along and says, right, you owe me income tax. Well, no, because that's still the fruits of your labour. That is still, just because you've converted it to money, that is still your produce. Yeah, they cannot take off of you without fair and adequate. I forget the wording now. The fair and adequate recompense. So, in other words, if they come and take your corn, they've got to pay for it. Yeah, the system's been twisted. It's been twisted. It's okay to tax somebody as long as you're getting something for that tax. But when the government's taking your tax off of you and giving it to a third world country, what are you getting from it? Nothing. They've actually stole your money. That's theft. They've actually stole your money. They have no right to give that taxation away.
Because it's not charity, is it?
No.
You used to actually get tax relief many years ago. I think I was probably one of the last ones that actually got the tax relief in the 70s. You got a relief on what you'd earned into what tax you put in, and that's gone. They don't do that anymore. Like marriage. You know, you get for getting married, you got a tax relief on that and all that type of thing. You don't get it anymore.
So that's exactly right what you just said there. And one of the things that people don't realise is that the Hong Kong tax system, the best tax system in the world, if you've got to have one, and by the way, it was voluntary. People need to remember that system come from England, right? And it was ordinances from the 1803 to 1909 Addington Act. And people don't realise that Hong Kong became more prosperous than us. What's the key point of that tax system? The tax allowances. Everything was tax allowable. Your health. So if you paid into a health system and you chose that health system, it wasn't forced upon you, you get a tax allowance for that. If you look after your elderly parents, you get a tax allowance for that. If you educate your children, you get a tax allowance for that. Everything is tax allowance. So a family could be earning, I'm talking about man and woman, children, yeah? If you're earning £250,000 a year in Hong Kong, under that system, you wouldn't be paying any tax because of the tax allowance. And what does it do? It encourages people to work, right? Your money is your money under that system, and it's an English system, one of the best tax systems in the world. And what have the Chinese done? Basically abolished it.
I even the sports that they had, that you could, anything, it was already paid for because you paid what you wanted to pay into it. So, and when I did a documentary, it was years ago about Hong Kong. I was amazed about what was free to them in sports wise. Tennis. I couldn't go have a game of tennis here. I'd have to pay through the nose to go and have a
charge you for everything.
Yeah.
Where do you gentlemen stand on the welfare state? Because someone who might be in their 20s might say, okay, this pension system, this welfare state, you chaps may have paid into it, but it was a scam. If I'm going to be now taxed to continue paying for this, isn't this perpetuating the system? Does the welfare state need to be abolished? And do we need to go back to genuine charity where you have these tax allowances that you've been talking about so people can actually voluntarily support each other?
Well, let me tell you something. That is a fantastic question. The direct answer is yes. The system that is currently in operation is absolutely abhorrent and goes against everything that the English system really believes in, right? And it starts to encourage not just starts, it forces you to rely on the state, and then the state becomes the control mechanism, and then you become, I've spoke about it before, Stalin's chicken, where he plucked the chicken in front of everyone, it was screaming, it was live, and he pulled all his feathers out, and then he started throwing corn to it. And the chicken come back to him and then started feeding out of his hand, right? He was trying to prove to people, don't matter how you treat the peasants, as long as you're feeding them, they'll come back, right? The point being, what you've just said is bang on. The welfare system and the way it operates is no good. The socialist system has been proven to be wrong. I've lived long enough to understand the benefits from a capitalist system, not a crony capitalist system that we've got now. People must understand there's a big difference. People are being conned by other socialists and the system, the only beneficiaries from this are the people that are called the British establishment, the British elites, whatever you want to describe them as, the British regime. The people at the top are the ones who are creaming off of us. Many of these jobs that exist are laughable, paper shufflers, and those jobs are being paid out of your taxes. To tax someone who is being paid from the tax system is just it is just a round robin of idiocy, right? It's obvious that you're conning people, and that's the main thing that the Labour Party used to tell people. We're creating jobs. The state are creating jobs. If the state creates a job, it is the taxpayer that's paying for it. Right, so you've got to remember at the end of the day, it's a dangerous spiral right to the bottom. So getting back to the point, should you abolish the welfare system as it exists today, including the National Health Service? 100% yes, right? Because the National Health Service is the second biggest employer, largest employer in the world, next to the Chinese army. Once you understand that that is being manipulated through the pension scheme, right? That workforce is so huge in terms of what they're voting for. People need to understand it is against you, and they have killed millions of people during COVID. Everyone applauded them, people banging saucepans. Trust me, go and ask where I live. I was outside my house with a loud hailer saying, put your pots and pans away. You look like a load of seals clapping for your own death, right? And people couldn't believe what I was saying. And I will tell everyone now, right? The National Health Service is not what you think it is. It isn't the best in the world. In fact, it's nowhere near it, right? They kill more people. There are more negligence claims in this country, nearly as many as there is in America, right? People need to see, right, that what they have created almost as a religion, the National Health Service as a religion, is the thing that is going to be your downfall. And you need to back away from it. Its current operation and the way it works. Welfare systems in this country are operating against you, not for you.
And it's 11% now of the GDP, I believe, is now being spent on the NHS, which is everything that everyone earns in the entire country. So if anyone in the country earns £100 on average, that would be £11 being taken out of that £100 that you've got in front of you, and that would be going to the NHS, which is an absolutely catastrophic amount of money. Gentlemen, where do you stand on the NHS, and do you have some stories about it? Do you have more to add?
My daughter works in the NHS, so I know quite a bit about it, but there's nothing I could tell you online. There's a terrible waste with procurement. That needs to be sorted. You could reduce the money there. There's a terrible waste with labour. There's people in there that are not working, just walking around. Far too many, I know this isn't, far too many chiefs and not enough Indians. It needs reform. You can either scrap it or reform it, but something needs to be done. We've always had a benefit system in England. It went back from the Charter of the Forests. If you couldn't feed your family, you could go into the forest and you could kill an animal, blow a trumpet or something, and take an animal to feed your family. That was an early benefit system we had. You had fishing rights as well. All of these things have been taken away from us.
Those would be the common land.
Yes, and common land.
So could the welfare state be seen as constitutional? Or do we need to move away from the welfare state and return a portion of England back to being common land where people can fish, they can hunt, and they can plant crops for a limited period of time before moving on to somewhere else?
Well, both, because you can't just take away the benefit system from people that have paid into it all their life. So there's got to be some sort of transition.
Exactly that.
Yeah. So the young now, they can be brought up, because what you're talking about is people becoming dependent on the state and not being able to look after themselves, losing the skills of life. Yeah. When you've got to fend for yourself, it's amazing how much initiative you can develop. When you're depending on the state, that check's coming in, you're just going to sit on that couch. It's a mindset. You just can't let it happen anymore. But you need to transition. So the youngsters are brought up with a sense of identity and a sense of power, and then as the elderly die off, you transition into a new system. You can't just flip a switch. There's no way that can happen.
Okay.
No, it's a black hole, isn't it? Really, it's a black hole. Too many bureaucrats, I think. That's one of the main things.
When you talk about bureaucracy, that's my favourite subject. You're talking about the Greater London Assembly and the Greater London Authority. Yeah, when that was sold to us, it was an ordinary man. The common man could be the mayor. Yeah, when it actually came out, what was it? £10,000 to sit. Yeah, to stand as a mayor, you had to cough up 10 grand.
It's now 15,000.
It's now 15. Yeah. But it was sold to you that the common man. We should have a referendum on abolishing that. That mayoral system isn't English. A mayor in England is a ceremonial position, more or less. But the power structure that they've created there is a European system. Yeah. When you're in France and you want planning permission for your property, you go see the mayor. If you want to dig a hole for water, a borehole for water, you have to go get permission from the mayor. It's all controlled by the mayor, and that's exactly what they've implanted in London and around the world, around England. We voted to leave the EU 2016. We spoke, we're leaving. Now we've left Europe. What we need to do now is get Europe out of England. Yeah? We've got out of Europe. We need to do the other thing, get Europe out of England. We need to abolish all their legislation. Just get rid of it. We don't need it anymore.
So, gents, what are the key threats that we're facing in this country that have undermined our freedoms? You've talked about lockdowns, but what sort of systematic change? What have we seen that's corrupted the system?
The world, this concept of a new world order, the WEF and
Agenda 21.
Yeah, World Health Organization, being able to mandate lockdowns.
What? I was looking on the local website for St Helens, and I was shocked because for quite a few years they've been saying the Agenda 21's a conspiracy theorist and all that lot, but it's 1986 or 1990s or something like that. It was put up the UN, and you get to all this, yeah, they're not going to do that, not going to do that. And the St Helens Council, and I think it's the government and all, after what I've read, they're pushing Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, and they're fluffing it up as if, sustainability and all the good words, climate change, we're going to look after you. Well, the planet will look after itself. You don't need us to look after it.
How conceited is man, eh? How conceited. We think we can change the climate. Yes, truly, that is conceit, isn't it? On a major level.
I mean, they're quite clever in what they did. They went from global warming to climate change, which you can't argue against climate change. You can't argue it because it does. It just changes. It's always changing.
Yeah.
Well, it's changed since the dinosaurs, hasn't it? So the climate does change. It's a bit of a coup in terms of a PR term.
Yeah. Well, when I seen that that they were pushing this Agenda 21, and I thought it's a 300-page document, right? So I've only read part of it, and they keep going about the proletariat within that document, right? There's nothing about, as far as I could see, there's nothing about the proletariat in the St Helens pushing of the Agenda 21, right? So they're a mission of not telling them what it's really about. Whether they've read I've not read because it's a hard read, you know what I mean? I'm sure it's a 300-page document, and and when I seen that on the St Helens Council webpage, I thought these men are mad. You know what I mean?
But they're also attacking the farms. They're also attacking food production. So under communism, they've always starved people. It's the cheapest way to kill. A bullet in the back of the head, they've got to pay for the bullet and they've got to dispose of the body. It's logistics. But if they can starve you to death, what happens is you die on your settee and your relatives have to pay for the funeral. They're clean, you know. It's economics.
Just to make sure people are aware of this, there's a great guy online and an extremely good journalist. He is, I believe they call him I think he's a battle journalist or some form of journalist. He used to be a Marine in the American Army, and his name is Michael Yon, who's on Twitter. He's a war journalist, so he actually goes into battles, and he's a very, very interesting character. Just to make sure I emphasise the point of famines, this is an expert in civil war. This is a guy who's been to somewhere in the region of 100 countries, and he even tells people, if I come to your country, you should be very worried because I only report on civil wars. That man stood up and said, with Tucker Carlson, on an interview with him, they are planning a famine. He talked about the Nord Stream pipelines. One of the things that he said people are not aware of, that in Germany, they are manufacturing, and they have done for a very long time, fertilizers, right? They're shutting down the chemical plants in Germany because a byproduct of the gas is fertilizer, and what they're doing is shipping lock, stock and barrel the whole setup to China. So China will control the fertilizer. The other group of people who will control the fertilizer is Russia. So what he's telling you, and he's correct, is, and again, like Collins just said, they are planning and already actioning a famine. And one of the reasons, again, people talk about chemtrails. Chemtrails is true. My dad, in 1952, was in Devon on holiday with my mum, right? And there was one of the worst storms they'd ever had. It killed 35 people, right? I didn't know my dad was there. And I was sitting there talking to him. He's now housebound. He's 94. And I started to tell him about this big storm in Devon. And it was the RAF that did it and cloud seeded. And he went, say that again? And I said, the RAF did it. They've admitted it was them. And it's now not classified. They've admitted doing it.
I've actually been there. The boulders that washed down the hill, like, they're still there. It's quite impressive, you know, what happened.
Yeah. So my dad was actually there. So he was on holiday from London, right? And I was talking to him. When I told him that, and they've admitted it was the RAF, he was absolutely fuming. Because him and my mum, who was carrying my older sister at the time, were both at risk from what they did. And they always denied it. So when people start talking about cloud seeding and chemtrails and all that, if we could do that in 1952, and remember, they used it during the Vietnam War to flood the Viet Cong tunnels. They used the same technology. How advanced do you think they are now? And people keep talking about nuclear weapons, right? Supersonic weapons, hypersonic weapons from Russia. I get that. There are far more advanced weapons out there now than you can ever imagine.
Well, we had the dam busters during the Second World War, and they made breaking dams illegal because, war crime, because of the devastation it caused. Now they're cloud busters. That's what they're doing.
Moving on slightly, where do you think that they're undermining our court system?
That'd be more Graham's.
Without any doubts whatsoever, the majority of judges today are perjuring their oaths. They are ideologically aligned to socialism. Because of this system they have now put in place, and again came from Tony Blair's era, where diversity, inclusion, etc., all that stuff, you're not getting the job on merit anymore or on legal knowledge. You're getting the job because of some diverse reason, right? Which is thoroughly, wrong. You should only have a job like that in any position, but not just the judiciary. So how are they undermining it? First of all, our judiciary are not taught the Constitution. That stopped in the early 70s. And it aligned with us going into the European Union for obvious reasons, because it was against our English Bill of Rights to go into the European Union. You cannot have a referendum on that subject because no one can control the English. It is completely against the English Bill of Rights. That was known at the time, and Edward Heath and others hushed it up and lied. We've seen the documentation. We've seen the fact that it was going to cause a problem for our sovereignty. Therefore, it was highly illegal. Not just illegal, it was treason, and people need to understand that. So our judiciary has been infiltrated. A higher level than that, you must understand that the long march through the institution has already taken place, that our education system is the one that's been predominantly infiltrated by Marxists. That is a trickle down because they train other teachers, they train, again, you've got law colleges and law universities, but from that training and that ideology, they infect and infiltrate every avenue of our system.
You've seen what Lord Pearson has said, haven't you?
I don't know whatever he's said recently, but I've actually met him.
Yeah, because I think he got onto the teacher training board back in the early 90s, and he found it was all completely controlled by communists.
Yeah.
So he went to Margaret Thatcher. Margaret Thatcher said, "Okay, I'm going to abolish it." But then I think it was within a couple of months she was stabbed in the back by Heseltine and the rest of them.
Yeah.
So that completely finished the attempt to stop that, and obviously Major was in power, and that's continued, and it's now was it 24 years? No, 34 years later. So does any of this, talking about the courts and the corruption, alarm you, gentlemen?
Well, yeah, of course it does, because if your courts are corrupt, you can't get your law. They won't enforce the Constitution. It's as simple as that. And if people just ignore, this is what's going on. They're just ignoring the laws of the land, because they are the laws of the land. Anybody in this country, these laws protect, but they don't want you to know that. Yeah, it is alarming.
What do you think of what's happening to our courts?
Well, they are being usurped by, like Graham says, the communists. If they're all Europhiles, put it that way. So and that's how they got into the positions, because they were Europhiles. And Tony Blair, I believe, and going what the Constitution says, what Graham is saying, is it totally illegal. Plus, they got rid of our grand juries in 1929. Don't forget, we're learning all this off Graham, and he backs it up with with proper documents on what they've what they did.
The clause "totally without merit", that's got to go.
Yeah.
That has got to go, because they just, anything that you put in there, they just look at it and go totally without merit, because they don't want to answer
That's
it.
communist.
They don't want that challenge put in there, so totally without merit.
And they don't let you have your day in court.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. Everything should be heard in court. The appeals system isn't working. People can't get appeals. Yeah, they're entitled to one appeal. After that, to get another appeal is a nightmare. And they don't even look at the evidence.
The state won't admit it's wrong.
Yes,
right.
That's right.
So if you ever get into a position, right, and there are so many, Jeremy Bamber, Lucy Letby, Jason Moore is another one, really big case. The system itself was wrong. People are in prison, and the state itself will persecute that person and see that person jailed for the entirety of their life, right? As long as the state doesn't admit it's wrong, right?
Melanie Shaw's another one.
Who?
Melanie Shaw.
Melanie Shaw's another one.
There's a lady who whistle blew on the adoption agencies, and she ended up in jail. I don't know if she's out yet, but she ended up in jail. I just can't remember her name now. It's just one name that slips me. So we've got plenty of political prisoners in this country.
Yeah,
I agree
they
with
sling people away just to gag them, you know, and to as a threat to other people, you know, as a warning to them. You open your mouth and this is going to happen to you. Make an example of.
People have only got to look at Julian Assange.
That's right.
What did the man do?
Yeah.
All he done was told the truth. He told us what the state were doing with our money, right? Where is he? He says he's in the highest security prison in Europe, in Belmarsh. It's called Hellmarsh for a reason. 5 years. Not only that, I mean, I was outside the Ecuadorian embassy reporting on that years ago. I've been outside of that prison reporting on it, right? What do they do with my channels? Take them down. Take them down. Take them down. And the thing is, I mean, again, your channel recently released a discussion that you and I had, and the point being, you're seeing all these people saying, "Oh my God, it's Graham! Where did he disappear to? He's still there, right?" But because they needed to shut me down. Look at Facebook, and some of my videos on Facebook were getting over 1 million views, right? All about the Constitution, right? 20-minute videos educating people. Who's in control of Facebook? Sinead Clegg, right? What did he do? Told a load of lies to students about free education and free university. Where is he now? He is the main enforcer of all. Basically, he is the enforcer for everything on Facebook. He's the one who takes you down. He's the one who's looking at all the censorship. He is the censorship czar for Facebook. Now getting something like $3 million a year. Got a nice house with a swimming pool, etc. Yeah, so Nick Clegg over there, and he's controlling American people's minds and our minds on Facebook.
Well, what is annoying and all is that American news agencies and even some politicians are asking for the death penalty for Assange. That is disgusting. Yeah, absolutely disgusting.
And again, the worst thing is about all of this, we get accused of being far right. There's nothing far right about me. I like a lot of what Jill Galloway says, but I absolutely refuse to call Colin or Joe comrade. Right? That is just so abhorrent to me, knowing what they did, the Soviets, to the people of Russia. Right? And people need to get the difference between the two. There was a difference between Soviets and normal Russians. And again, I was telling Colin the other day, if people only understood, I think his name was, and you might be able to correct me on this, Alexander Solzhenitsyn. Yeah, and he's the guy, he wrote 12 volumes on the Soviet Union, telling people the truth, right? He was asked the question, right, what's your biggest bugbear? And he said people conflating Russian with Soviet. And he said, I am a Russian. I am not Soviet, right? And that's exactly how we feel. Stop with this British psyop.
So you could say it's the difference between the people here and the government here, because good books to recommend obviously would be the Gulag Archipelago, and if you're looking for a short book, entry level, A Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich. I'm sure you guys might have
I'll have to write that one.
Heard of it.
I've got the first one you mentioned.
Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich. It's only short. You can read it in a day or two. Honestly, no time to read it. So it's a great short read. When people say, "Oh, should I read the Gulag Archipelago?" I go, read this, right? It'll take you a day or two. If you like that, then maybe move on. But start yourself on something small, I'd say. So, gentlemen, we've discussed a lot of the issues going on in our country. How should we defend our rights? And what are the policies of the English Constitutional Party and the suggestions by the English Constitutional Society in order to fix our country? What are you guys going to do and lobby for if you get into Parliament, if you manage to take power?
Well, first of all, you need to do something with the economy. So let's put some money in the hands of pensioners. Let's increase their pensions. Why do that? Because pensioners are normally asset rich. So if you put the money in their hands, what they're going to do? They're going to go out and spend it. Yeah. They've got a short life expectancy, so they're going to go out and enjoy the money that you give them. that boosts the economy, that boosts restaurants, that boosts coffee bars, things like that, that boosts the theatres. Don't put the money, because what's happening now, they print money and the banks get it. And the banks, you go back to the 70s, think how a bank used to be. There was a bank on every corner. Now, there's half the banks, maybe a tenth of the banks, but there's great big glass and steel towers lined with marble, like huge palaces, because they've raked up all the money. Yeah. So we need to take the money from the banks and redistribute it to the people. You start with increasing the pensions. You don't steal from the pensioners the way Labour want to do, yeah, because they just see quick solutions. You put the money in the hands of the pensioners, they go out and spend it. What you can do with the banks, usury, no interest charges. Yeah, usury is a dodgy game, but you could keep usury in some sort of fashion. What you do is savers, when you put your money in the bank, you get interest paid on them savings. But when you take a loan from the bank, you don't pay interest. Now, you think, oh, no, that ain't going to work. Well, no, it will, because as people spend their money, they spend it on these cards. And when you spend the money on cards, the bank takes a cut. It's only a small cut, nobody notices it. But all those small cuts add up, yeah? So what you effectively do is bleed the banks over many years the way they've bled us, and you get that money from them and you push it back into society, yeah? And that boosts the economy. It's a function of government to look after the economy, to make the country wealthy so that the people can prosper. Yeah, but they're not doing that. They're doing the exact reverse. It's like, it isn't the function of government to control you. It isn't the function of government to use propaganda on you. It isn't the function of government to stop your movements, to control your movements, to create 15-minute cities. That isn't the function. Yeah, they should have at least less control over you as absolutely possible. If Parliament only stood for one day a year, that'd be one day too many. Yeah, let people get on with their lives, and if Parliament wants to do anything, control the borders. Yeah, they're meant to stop the nation being invaded. Yeah, and protect the people.
Just to emphasise your point there, and you've made some excellent points, right? To emphasise the point, it is not the job of the government to create jobs. It is the job of the government to create an environment where we create the jobs, right? That's what people are not getting. That's the difference between a socialist society and a real capitalist society. The second thing, and I just want to emphasise this as well, when you elect a constitutionalist, someone who is not left or right, politically, ideologically aligned, right? A constitutionalist is about right and wrong and the rule of law and your rights. When you elect a constitutionalist, you're doing the job of a member of parliament as it used to be. Tony Benn knew what your rights were. Right? He may have been a socialist, but he separated the law from the ideology. Right? That was the difference with Tony Benn. He knew what your rights were, and he would protect your rights when he was in Parliament. What you need is many more people that can push forward, that understands the law. So remember the very vital fact, and it is a fact, that we, the English Constitution Party, do not have whips. A whip is fundamentally unlawful. And you've only got to look it up in the Acts of Settlement, right? That it is unlawful. The reason why they have what's known as a 1, 2, and 3 line whip is because it is a code system. Why did they develop a code system? Because it's unlawful. Now, we know that code system exists and we know what it means. So what you should be saying is, Tories, have you got whips? Yeah, unlawful. Labour, have you got whips? Yeah, unlawful. You've got no right to influence a member of parliament from outside by the party. Reform UK should not influence members of parliament, their own members of parliament, and nor should George Galloway. You're not operating for your party. You're operating for your constituents. That's completely, and it's been ignored in law, that it is unlawful to have a whip system. And once people understand that, right, you'll start to see the change.
So my questions there would be, how could this possibly be enforceable, considering you would get the party putting pressure on someone? They would say, well, we think you should vote for this, right? They wouldn't have a formal whip. They wouldn't have a formal slip of paper or an email that they said telling people what to vote for, but they would have informal conversations. And I'm sure if someone in your party, for example, voted for a lockdown, you would kick them out, right? You would withdraw your support from that person.
Because the lockdown isn't constitutional.
I agree. Yeah. I agree.
You've hit something there that I've got to say something, right? Yeah. I've got to say this to you. Not a single member of our party, right, would ever vote for a lockdown.
I know.
Ever.
I know.
It just would not happen. You wouldn't be a member of our party and to align with that vote.
Imagine that there is the next thing, right? You know, there's always a new thing. It's Russia, the Ukraine, it's Israel and Palestine. Okay, it's lockdowns. There's always a new thing. So let's imagine the next new thing, whatever it would be, cyber attacks. So, you know, no one's allowed to use a computer, or it's electrical blackouts, meaning that you're not allowed to, you know, take a bath or something like that. There's always going to be a new thing that happens. Or what was the thing? Oh, you need permits for chickens because everyone's going to catch bird flu. So there's always a new thing. Let's say it's unlikely, but a member of your party falls for the new thing, the latest PSYOP, and they vote for it and they support it. You would kick them out, surely, of the party, if they went for something egregious that was equivalent to a lockdown.
I would expect them to give an explanation to their constituents.
But would you?
It's not about the party. It's about the constituents. So, in other words, if the group of people, their electors and subscribers that put them, that elected you should be in Parliament, that group of people, yeah, would have the right as a jury to question that member of Parliament and say, you have opted for this, right? We don't like it. And that's when the recall comes in. A recall comes in of a member of Parliament that's gone against the constituents. It's not the party that should be kicking them out. It's the constituents.
So you would allow someone to stay in the party if they had...
I would be at a hearing, listening intently, when the 10 subscribers that stuck that person up to be a member of Parliament. So we've all been subscribed to pay, right? So to be in an election, I would expect that the proposer and the seconder and the 8 subscribers that have to sign before you can become, you can't, but you have to be on the electoral roll and you have to subscribe to that person. I would expect them people to put, let's say it was me, to pull me up in front of them and say, listen, you said you're a constitutionalist. This is completely unconstitutional, right? And then they make the decision on a petition to recall, right? Not the party. The party should not have control over a member of Parliament.
I'm not saying direct control as to recall. I'm just saying, would you kick someone out if they went for a lockdown?
Well, what about if the constituencies wanted it? What about if his constituents
you would leave it
wanted
down
it?
to the constituents?
Yeah, because you're representing the constituents.
And if someone was part of the party, and then the constituents, let's say the constituents also fell for the new thing that comes along, so they fall for the propaganda, you would allow them to stay in the party?
No, I wouldn't. But it's not me who's made the decision; it's the constituents.
So, but if the constituents say yes, we want to keep this person because they felt fallen for this,
then it's they're there. So the member of Parliament is there for the constituents. It's the constituents that make the decision, not the political party.
Yeah, but would you
even if I disagreed with him, and even if we all disagreed that it was wrong, right? We'd have obviously an internal and a public debate on it.
Yeah,
but you've got to get away from this. That the party is controlling the member of Parliament. That is crucial, and it's crucial that people understand what we believe in, and that is it is your conscience. You operate in that Parliament with your own conscience. You are not right, directed by this party to vote any way that the party wants. You do what your constituents tell you. I'll give you an example. We could have, let's say any one of us are elected. I still do my podcast show every night at 8 o'clock, right? Bit like what George Galloway does now. He would say, I'll give you an example. George Galloway, he would turn around and say, right, the people of Rochdale, I have been asked to vote on this. What is your opinion on it? It's easy to do it now. You click vote, right? Everyone who's in that area goes bing, 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 comes up and he gets 60-70% of the people. We agree.
What if the people are focused on something that's not in line with the Constitution? So what if you get...
Constitution takes precedent every time.
Over everything.
So you would have to say, okay, I see that a lot of people voted for this, but no, this defies our Constitution.
Correct.
And it's repugnant. So you would have to be a check and balance upon that.
Yeah. You would have to... So one of the issues out there at the moment is people are not educated by design on the Constitution of England, right? And once they are educated on it, they wouldn't want to go against the Constitution because they know it protects their rights. And it's not just about them. I've said it, during this conversation. It's our job, one, to protect the Constitution, and two, to pass the eternal flame of freedom onto the next generation. It is not our role or our job to extinguish the eternal flame of freedom for our next generations. And we are the people that currently are in charge of that position, and we do not want to let our ancestors down that fought and died for us and them rights. We're the ones who've got to stand up. And the majority of them people at the moment are the greys. You haven't got many greys yet. But what I'm saying is we're the ones pushing it forward. You ain't got one, I don't think.
I know. I think I'm okay for the moment. So you talked about the next generation. You've talked about, rather than the government try and control the economy, it's about the government creating the environment of an economy where people can then flourish. And that's all the government needs to do.
To deregulate.
Yeah, to deregulate. But you have talked about putting more money into the pension. So speaking of the next generation, for someone in their 20s who sees, okay, more money is then going to be taxed somehow, right?
You don't have to do it via a tax system. There is the Bradbury pound. We've used it 3 times in our English history, right? It was first used in, I think it was 1795. I'm not sure on the dates on this. 1795. You can go and read Finances in the Nation. The Bradbury pound was used and they created something called the Liverpool Notes Act. It rescued Liverpool at the time. It had to be paid back, no usury. Right. The next time it was used was 1851, the Guernsey pound. Again, they only used it to build colleges, roads, and hospitals, which were used by the next generation and the generation after that.
But we're talking about paying that out to pensioners, so we're talking about
you need a transition system. One of the issues that you've got is the socialists have built a system where everyone is now reliant, and you can't lie. And well, you're not just lying. They've said, gimme. So the government is gimme your money, right, for the last 60, 70 years. And when it's come down to paying out the pensions and giving it back, right, they haven't invested it properly. They've wasted it. Their system is corrupt to the core.
Well, you say that there is no pension pot. It doesn't exist. So there is
no. I agree.
So all the money that you guys and I and anyone else have paid in over our lives, it doesn't exist. There is no pension pot. So any money that you want to draw out for pensions is necessarily going to come from working people. And those people are going to be forced to pay for it. So it interests me that you're talking about you're talking about transition, and you would assume in a transition that you slowly reduce the support of the state.
Correct.
But you've talked about increasing the amount of support for pensioners, which is the opposite of that.
So the transition period incorporates the Bradbury pound, right? People who don't understand what it is, I'll give you an example. In 1914, we used the Bradbury pound to finance the First World War. If we can finance it, if we can use the Bradbury pound to finance a war and killing people, we can use that to finance our pensioners who have been lied to. Right, that's what's happened. People have been lied to,
and we also finance it by
treasury money,
not paying wars. We stop funding wars. Yeah, so we stop giving money to the Ukraine. Yeah. We stop giving money to Israel or Gaza or whatever's happening. No more funding of wars. It's just, and the money you save there. Also, you stop the government borrowing money, because every time the government borrows money
At interest.
they're stealing from us. Yeah, because governments don't have any money of their own. All the money that the government has comes from us. Yeah, so when they borrow, they make a big issue of it. We're going to borrow X amount this year and to fund whatever. That's direct theft from us and the future generations. Yeah, we sit back and allow it to happen. They're not just stealing from me, they're stealing from my children, they're stealing from my grandchildren, they'll be stealing from my great-grandchildren. That's what goes on. So we're putting a stop, we want to put a stop to that sort of thing. Yeah, like I said earlier, when 30-odd million goes to one country from our tax, you can bet your life some of that gets shipped back into private bank accounts, yeah? Because that's the reason for doing it, after all. I mean, all those yachts in them harbours don't, you can't finance it from turning a lathe. There's so much corruption in the system that it's got to be put a stop to. It's as simple as that. And we've got a plan for doing it.
So I see what you're doing there. I know that overseas, well, they call it overseas aids, overseas handouts are, I think, is it something like 10 to 20 billion or something at this point?
It's a ridiculous amount of money.
You're talking about getting rid of the NHS. The NHS is obviously a huge amount of money. So I understand that could, of course, lead to having a bit more money for the transition. However,
hold on. There's one crucial thing that we want to do, and that's void the Acts of Union. When the Acts of Union was set up, nobody ever asked us. Yeah, we was never asked. Scotland's had a vote on whether they want to leave the Union, but the English never have. Yeah, if we have a referendum the way we did with Europe, and we void the Acts of Union, England never took on that debt. The British took on that debt, but we never.
True.
The debt is something like, it's in trillions. It's something like 2.5, maybe 3 trillion now. So we'd immediately wipe that debt off the plate.
Well, not all of the debt is from Scotland.
No. We're not talking about the national debt.
So you want to opt out of the national debt and say it's not our debt to pay?
It's
exactly.
the British debt.
It's a
because
British debt.
It comes from the British Parliament.
So if you secede from the United Kingdom and England just becomes England, then there is no national debt.
That's right.
And there's no national debt to be paid. There's no interest on the national debt, especially.
Yeah.
Right? And then you can go back to governments having to tax before they spend money. But
and also, we never joined the EU. So even though we've left the EU, we're still paying the EU. Yeah. So by avoiding the Acts of Union, we stopped paying the EU because we was never in it.
Or you just don't pay him a penny.
Yeah.
We
shouldn't be
paying
paying
a penny. But again, Colin has made a fantastic point there. Basically, when you void, not repeal, void the Acts of Union, right? All authority of the British Parliament is gone, and any authority in which it acted to incorporate debt is gone with it, right? So you put the British regime into administration. The assets didn't belong to the British. They belonged to the English, the Scots, the Welsh, and the Irish. And once we do that and people understand what we're talking about, what do England do then, right? I'll tell you what they do. They join BRICS. Scotland joins BRICS. Wales joins BRICS. Ireland joins BRICS, right? We want a monetary system that is real value, not the one built on the oil system of Saudi Arabia and the United States of America. That needs to end.
The gay.
Well, it's now gone, was it yesterday or the day before? And they're talking about doing it. Putin is not the bad guy.
Yeah.
Right? He is a good guy. And I mean, he calls Russia the motherland, right? Well, we call England the motherland, but it's the motherland and the fatherland, and we are all English.
And also, Nigel Farage campaigned to keep Scotland in. Yeah, he came, and if Scotland had left at that point, we wouldn't have needed the 2016 referendum because we would have automatically been out of the EU. So think about that, because he had an option there to get us out of the EU, and he declined it. He didn't want that.
is it your view that we need to move to a system of solid, hard money, such as gold?
Well, I thought, did England, they said that Britain's going back to gold standard. I thought.
People are talking about the gold standard, but one of the things that, is the right example.
Yeah. What happened
Well, used to be sterling, silver.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sterling.
After
£1 of sterling silver is the weight of it.
Yeah, after the Great Depression, it was Kennedy's grandfather, I think it was, or Kennedy's father, JFK, was put in charge of writing out the rules to regulate the banks. I think that they were called Glass-Steagall. Everything was great up until the Clintons, Bill Clinton, deregulated the banks. And now we've seen the chaos that's created. Replace the regulations.
You've made a really good point there. Bill Clinton. How many people know that Bill Clinton went to Oxford University and Bill Clinton was a known full Comanche communist? Did you know that?
Both the Clintons went to Oxford.
Yeah, full Comanche communist. Bill Clinton. Not a nice man.
So you'd like to move to gold, and so you'll need to purchase some gold, and that will be used to back.
Unfortunately, Gordon Brown did sell off all our gold at the rock bottom price and then announce it to the market that he was doing it.
You are correct, except it was half the gold, I believe. So it's left at 310 tons. However, if we were the first country, and this is what I think is interesting, if we were the first country to re-adopt the gold standard, we could use our currency to buy loads of gold, right? Buy just about all the gold in the market. Market price would go through the roof. And then if other countries start jumping on this, it's essentially, whoever gets in there first, early bird catches the worm. And I mean, Milei's clearly moving towards this in Argentina. He's pegged himself to the dollar, which of course is, supporting the global American empire, which isn't great. But I think his long-term goal is to move to gold and have a solid gold standard in Argentina. I think, gold is real money, and that just stops the government from having the power to inflate.
Yeah.
Because the government can't inflate away your cash. There can be no wealth tax if the government can't get its hands on the wealth.
Inflation is a really good point, because that is the way they're destroying our economy. And because they've always wanted inflation since the last crash, but they kept printing money, and the prices wouldn't inflate. So that's why the Ukraine war came about, because they realised they had to inflate the energy prices. Because as soon as you inflate the energy prices, you push up the cost of goods. You push up transporting goods. That causes inflation. Now they've got the inflation that they want. It devalues your savings. Anybody that's bothered to save, any pensioners that are bothered to save, they've had their pensions raided and they haven't even seen it. Yeah?
Inflation is theft.
It is.
I would like to ask you, gents, what is it about your party that you think appeals to young people then?
Oh, I'm too old to tell you that.
You talked a lot about pensions. You talked a lot about supporting older people, and a lot of older people are going to recognise many of the things that you're talking about. That these things were our past and they're being ripped away. What potential do you see of it giving something to young people?
I think the easiest thing for me to comment on this. You've got Charlie Stables, 23 years old, out with us, right, meeting us at Trafalgar Square. A member of the Selden Society, which is one of the oldest societies dealing with constitutional law. The patron is King Charles III. The vice president is the lady Chief Justice, for example. And it's the historical record of our constitutional law and ancient laws, customs and usage. 23 years old, standing with us. Right, he wanted to be a part of this, and there's many other young people now are listening to us, understanding that, especially when I talk to younger people, and I say, like, when I was 18, I was free.
That's right.
Now I'm not free anymore.
Yeah.
Right, and because they have been indoctrinated into thinking that this is normal, it's a bit like the Soviets.
They no longer see the shackles. They
can't see the shackles.
Yeah. When I was brought up during the 60s, 70s, there was still a sense of freedom. Yeah, even though we'd gone into the common market, there was still a sense of freedom because the level of bureaucracy hadn't kicked in. But the inflation happened. Housewives couldn't make ends meet. People forget all this, but housewives couldn't make ends meet. That's what caused all the strikes in the 70s. It weren't the unions demanding more money just because they want to be rich. They had to demand more money because they had to feed themselves. Yeah. And then you ended up with about 79, the winter of discontent. Yeah. When Thatcher got in. But the 60s and early 70s, there was a sense of freedom which has been lost. It was just been lost to everybody, and the younger generation don't understand what they're like. The regulations now, you can't do this, you can't do that. You know, it's ridiculous. It removes all the creativity from life. If you back in the 60s, if you got an idea, you went in a shed and you knocked something up and you went and tested it. You took it over the park and let's give it a go. Now, no, you're not allowed to do that. That might hurt. You might hurt somebody. You got a health and safety clearance for that. Have you done a risk assessment on it? It's the regulations are ridiculous, and they stifle creativity.
1974, they started all the regulations, safety regulations in 1974.
Yeah. So, is our constitution punk?
Is it what? Sorry,
punk.
Young
punk.
Yep.
Do you mean is it from the punk era?
No, I mean, does it have the punk spirit to it?
Definitely.
Yeah.
There are people out
the
there.
Music, yeah. If you've heard the music.
Listen. When "God Save the Queen" comes on, I still pogo. So the answer to that is, Johnny Rotten is another example. There were a group of us that still have that same spirit, right? And it's that spirit that you see on their marches against anti-lockdown. And it's funny that there are young people that have still got that association. Charlie Staples is one of them. Again, he's a plumber. They took horrible liberties with him, literally on the streets of London, tortured him, and all he was doing was standing up for his constitutional rights. So, do we connect with young people? Yes. They don't like us connecting with young people. That's why they've took us off, or always took my channel down from social media. I mean, I had 2,500 subscribers, 25,000 subscribers, 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. Took each one of them down, right? And people have to understand, why are they targeting me? Because I'm telling you the truth, and I'm telling you, I'm teaching people what they should have taught you in school, right? And that is what your constitutional rights really are, what you can really use in the High Court, which you can really use in the courts of this country. And these lawyers, judges, etc., have been trained. It's been trained out of them, right? And we need to be the ones educating the judges.
Okay. I told my grandchildren, I printed off the Bill of Rights and all that, all the bills and acts and that. And my daughter, and she's only 40. And I said to him, if your teacher ever tells you haven't got a constitution, right, just show them that. And then if they're still there, tell them to come and see me. And then I'll put them in touch with them. You know what I mean? But
homeschooling's the best way.
Yeah, I've been doing, give everything to my daughter to pass on.
But are you putting your kids in the state school?
My daughter,
your grandkids?
My daughter took her children out. She homeschooled, but the youngest wants to go because he's a boisterous little lad, and he's in senior school now, and he just wants to be with his mates. If he gets the experience the other two children, he might change his mind. I don't know, but I hope she does homeschool him in the end. But she has done a good job with them.
Well done. So what do you see being the plan going forward to educate people? Is the English Constitutional Party a vehicle to make people more aware of our constitution?
Yeah, absolutely.
Society. And then, so you've got the English Constitution Society, which is non-political, right? It's the equivalent of the Co-op Society, for example. And then, although we've not got lots of land or etc., but I'd love to build that up. So we did have, and we can support the political party side. But so the English Constitution Society is what teaches people, and the English Constitution Party are the people that understand enough about the Constitution to stand as a constituent and then say, right, I stand for you. That's it.
And is that then enabling you to get through to more people and wake more people up about?
100%. My channel on Rumble is getting out there. I get lots of requests to go to stands in a park, and I've been all over the country doing that. I get lots of requests to go and speak to people, you know, in pubs, in groups, etc. And people are now realising that what I actually teach people is real and not fake, right? And that's the most crucial thing. You know, you've got to get away from these people. You know, some things in life sound nice, but the world isn't you want it to sound. I'm talking about the reality and the reality of the Constitution and what it is.
But what are the plans going forward? Are you training up new people? Okay, are we going to see some of your candidates becoming as well versed as you, so that there will be multiple people who can all go around the country and do the same thing?
We are educating ourselves as we go along. I think we had we could have stood over 30 candidates. Yeah. We just simply couldn't afford it. We're all self-funding. If we had the backing that and you said UKIP, Reform UK have, we would have been able to add a lot more candidates on the ballot paper. We simply don't have the finance. But over time, we will get there. We will get there.
We are getting there. More and more people are learning about what we are and what we do. But again, one of the things, just to let you know, I mean, what you said about, you know, doing a course and working out that course. If I had the assistance of people who could help me with a video course, with a structured course, a learning course on the Constitution, hitting the key points, the key points of law, the constitutional law, and showing people, like you said, the receipts, right? And once that can be done and put out there, lots of people have asked me to write a book. Lots of people have wrote books about the Constitution. You have to be very careful who wrote the book, right? Because if they're British and they wrote the book, they very rarely talk of England and the English Constitution. Again, in Chorley, where I'm standing, for example, a lot of people don't know this, the second largest group of Mormons outside of Utah, USA, who are they? Christians. What do they believe? They believe that the Constitution is the word of God, right? That's what I believe. The common law is God's law, and God's law is the common law. And once we actually teach people that all of this is part of our heritage, and it is English by nature, and once people understand that and they all come on board, again, you know, there's so much to learn about England. No one can be an expert in the common law, but you can become an expert in the Constitution.
Because it's the basic principles. So, yeah. Gentlemen, if you had to say, what are your top 3 policies that you are campaigning on?
Well, I'd campaign on stop funding wars. Yeah. If you fund wars, what you're doing is killing men, women and children. Yeah. And destroying their homes. It's just not right.
Number 2?
Well, it's not on here, but sexual thing, sexualizing our children, our young children from an early age. I'm against that. They should be allowed to grow up to become young teenagers or in the secondary school before they even touch anything like that. And some of the books that are coming out are absolutely disgusting. That are teaching our children about sex. I'm not saying it should, little bits here and there after 7 years old possibly, but that should be parent and child, and not the education system teaching them something that they wouldn't even think of probably. Okay, you have the other. I do know you have my granddaughter wants to be called Damien, right? I don't know why, but she'd be the granddaughter. That's what she wants to be called. I slip up and I call her because she's Caitlin to me, Caitlin. So I've got the experience of what's, where she's got it from. She was never like that up to going to senior school, I think.
And then when they get into secondary school, that's when the ideology comes in.
So,
and it gets worse as it goes to the universities. They increase.
And that's one of my. I don't like that. You know what I mean?
Second policy?
The pensions, definitely increase pensions for the pensioners. If it's a livable wage is 19k, why are you paying pensioners 11k? If that's what it costs to live, then what you've effectively done is push pensioners into poverty. And recently they increased the pension to 11k, and they increased it and then charged them tax on it. So there'd be no taxation on pensions, private or state.
Because you're paying taxes twice
You're
They're
paying it
taxed.
again.
They're already taxed. So you've already been taxed on it, and you're getting it again, and you're being taxed on it again.
What would be the second policy for you then?
So, I don't know. I have got wars. Yeah, don't send our. My son is a officer in the British Army, and I don't want him going to war. It's a totally we're not fighting to defend our country. He's not fighting to defend our country.
Yeah.
He's fighting for the globalists. He's fighting for the oil companies. He's not fighting for you and me.
Yeah.
He probably might think he is, but he's no.
Well, the sad thing is a lot of our soldiers have signed up to defend this country, but they don't actually end up being put in a position where they can defend this country. They're being sent to places where they're fighting people they don't want to be fighting for, and often they're making the countries worse. Iraq, clearly, if the soldiers hadn't have gone in, it would have been a better country.
Yes, yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And so, you applaud them for signing up, and you applaud them for keeping their mates safe in battle. But can you applaud them being there?
Yeah. And also, when they come back in 10, 20, 30 years' time, the British government will stab them in the back, the way they've done with our soldiers in Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Charging them, aren't they?
No, they are. To be fair, I've had a number of them contact me, and if it proceeds to prosecution, they want me to represent them constitutionally. And I would do that, and I would agree to, and I've agreed to do that. So if any of them are criminally charged, I'm telling you now, they don't want a British barrister wrapped around them, or a British solicitor, because they are going to be no help to you whatsoever. They have been indoctrinated by the socialist communist system, and anything to do with Northern Ireland, the whole system is being corrupted by the Fabians.
So what would be your third policy then?
A third policy. Well, I mentioned that no taxation on the pensions and increasing. So there was two policies there. To educate the children in school, make sure the English Constitution is pushed in schools. Put it on the curriculum. Make sure it's a structured education. It's not just a quick brush over about the Magna Carta. Make sure they go into some details, structured right the way through from primary school through to secondary school, and have university degrees in it.
Infrastructure, the roads and that, all, they keep blaming it on something else, but they've, since the pandemic, they've not spent anything on them, have they? Roads.
That is a really good point there, because what we want to achieve is what I said about removing the GLA and that, put the control, devolution, but put the control back into the council's hands. So you don't have, because what happened, they claim devolution, they give the power to the councils, and then all of a sudden the councils give it to the mayor. Yeah. So all your money, all your rates go to the mayor. Let's get rid of all the bureaucracy. Let's put the money. Let's put the power to the councils so that the taxes that they raise, the local taxes, get spent in the local area. It doesn't go to Parliament. It doesn't go through Parliament. It gets used in the local area. So your council tax will be used to repair the roads. Your council tax will be used to sweep the roads, be used to look after the parks, as it used to be. Yeah. Not the way it's done there, because all you're doing is paying for people to sit round on their arse and vote on something. Well,
So just to emphasise that point, so the three elements for me, English independence, that includes giving the power back to the counties, the shires, the districts, district councils, the shire councils and the county councils and the parish councils, right? And giving them their money back, giving back the power. And what you're doing is redistributing the governance back to the people, taking it away from centralisation. The English Parliament that we envisage isn't the British Parliament with an English flag sitting on top. It goes back to the way it should have been, always been, and that is that governance is distributed. In England, we were a confederacy of shires and counties. So the first point is English independence. You can't have that with the British system, right? Second is no usury. No usury on infrastructure projects that benefit the future generations, right? Because no one should be paying taxes or interest, etc. on that. And the third and most important thing for me is the pensions. The fact that pensioners have been robbed by this socialist system, and they have been lied to generation after generation, and now that lying should stop, and people should be honest with them and say, listen, we need this other system in place, and it means that the future generations will again have the ability to earn and to put their fruits of their labour into their house, their family, and build something for them and their future generations independently of the state.
And does that mean, gentlemen, if you're talking about people, younger generations having this ability, will that mean controlling the borders, A? Yeah. So at least a commitment to net zero migration, right, which is just a minimum. Yeah. And further repatriation of a lot of the migrants who are over here, where they haven't integrated.
Yeah, the illegal migrants that come over it, definitely.
Will the legal ones just be allowed to stay who've been given permission by this government?
No, they're gone. Yeah, listen, the English Constitution will kick in a big way. Once we take control, let me emphasise this as well. People often say to me, how do you get rid of a judge? Well, the answer is the only way under the Constitution you can get rid of a judge is for the Commons to impeach the judge, right? Currently, the system is so corrupt, they will never impeach the judge. When you people like me, Colin, Joe, and other constitutionalists and people that understand the Constitution in place, what happens? We have a vote on impeaching the judges, right? They lose their pensions, they've perjured their oaths, they're gone. That's when you'll see this system change.
What I would like, basically coming towards the end now, gents, is repeat again where you're standing, and could you let us know one by one what gives you the characteristics to make a good member of Parliament and how your background factors into this. So talk a little bit about your background there.
Okay, my background. I've been unemployed. I've worked in industry. I've gone back to university as a mature student. I've been a full-time carer, and I've run my own business. That's basically my background. What was the rest of the question?
So where are you standing, and how is that going to play into you being a good member of Parliament?
The constituency of Romford in Essex, that's where I'm standing. My characteristics for being a good member of Parliament, I didn't stand for all the nonsense of lockdown. I wouldn't put up with it. I wouldn't wear the mask. I push back on authority. I will represent the people of Romford to the best of my abilities, and I'll work hard to push the Constitution in the country.
What's the question again, sorry?
Tell us a little bit about your background and how that... Firstly, repeat where you're standing. Tell us a little bit about your background and say why your background and your characteristics are going to make you a good MP.
Well, I'm standing in St Helens North. and I was born in St Helens. I moved out of St Helens, come back to St Helens. So I'd be apprenticeship in St Helens. I went to school in St Helens. Worked in manufacturing. I'm caring now with my mother and my partner, really, my girlfriend. But I want the streets in St Helens. There's rubbish all over the place, and the infrastructure of the place. I want to, the town centre itself. The Labour Party say how well they're doing with the building of the town centre. It's dead. St Helens town centre is dead, and all the shops are boarded up, and it's been, it's rack and ruin. So I'd like to get that changed. I'd like to get businesses into them places. Probably cut business rates for the markets. People who run the markets, and cut their business rates or like that. And get the education system to promote the Constitution and English independence.
Can I just add one thing? The Labour Party has got no incentive to make your life any better. They want to keep you poor for the one simple reason: soon as you get something, as soon as you gain a property, or so, you start voting Conservative. While they can keep you poor, you vote Labour because you think they're on your side, but they're not, because they won't ever change your life, because as soon as they change your life, you vote Conservative. And that's the simple truth of it.
Well, I'm not sure about people voting Conservative anymore. It seems like we might be in the once-in-a-century inflection where they are destroyed and replaced. Graham, you're standing in Chorley, the Speaker's constituency, up in Lancashire.
I am. It's an important strategic sheet because like you say, the Speaker of the House of Commons, it doesn't mean I'll be the Speaker. It means you dislodge the Speaker, and it will be very embarrassing for the House of Commons to have to elect another Speaker because the current Speaker has been dislodged. So Lindsay Hoyle would be gone.
That's Lindsay Hoyle, who refuses to even wear the wig of his office that he should be wearing, and to act as a neutral judge. And you've been quite opportunist here, because none of the main parties run against the Speaker, so it will only be Lindsay Hoyle from his party.
I think there's two other candidates. One of them's the Green Party, if you can call that a candidate. And the other one, I don't know much about him. He is a local person. I will say this to the constituency themselves. Don't forget, as the leader of the English Constitution Party, I can stand in any seat in the country. That's the way it works for us, yeah? It's a strategic sheet. I'm not being parachuted in or anything like that. I actually visit Chorley quite regularly. I know a lot of people around there. I come for a beer around there. It's a place that I absolutely love. So, again, people need to understand I'm standing up for pensioners. Everyone we spoke to around there, when we was talking to people, they wanted a massive increase in the pensions. They do believe that they've been robbed. They do believe that the system has literally persecuted them in their later years. It is completely wrong. So again, Chorley is a strategic seat, and that's why we need to get elected there. It's got a very, very large Christian population. And again, that's something that we're going to look at again, and especially if you look at Chorley with just the Mormon population, without anyone else. They're lovely people. They follow Christ in all ways. They believe that the Constitution is the Word of God, and it is. So I feel aligned with Chorley. And the other person, obviously, who's not here today because she's not very well, should we jingle his little bell for him just so he can... There you go. Town Crier, as he's known. Brett Fruin, who is standing in Broxbourne in Hertfordshire. And again, Brett is standing for exactly the same principles. He is on dialysis. He is terminally ill. And if anyone don't understand what that means, look it up. And although he comes out with us, he's full of life. He's extremely funny. He's a very, very good friend and a very good patriot to the English Constitution Party. He is one person that will stand up. They're trying to take his benefits off him, PIP, etc. He's worked all his life, and yet he's still in this election, and he's trying. And you know, when you look round and you see people that can't even be bothered to vote, and he's on dialysis, he's not very well, he's terminally ill, right? And yet he's standing in an election for people, you know. And I just think at the end of the day, you know, so many people died for our vote, not just to Peterloo. Which is a massive thing. We're going up there in August to the monument in Peterloo, which is at Manchester City Central, and people need to understand what the state has always done against working people, and we need to start fighting back. And the only way you can do that without violence is the ballot box.
Can I just add one thing? That Chorley is a very important spot because of the speaker. Nobody normally challenges the speaker, yeah, so he gets a free pass. But universal suffrage is a constitutional right. By them not challenging the speaker, they've taken those constituencies' votes away from them.
Correct.
That's why we're standing there, or that's why Graham's standing there, to allow them people to have the right to vote.
I'd like, quick if you can, 1 or 2 minutes. You each need help to get elected. What's your quick 1 minute, minute and a half pitch to potential activists, donors and advocates?
We need as much help as possible, literally as much help as possible. We haven't got the infrastructure of the larger parties. We can't get out there. I stood as a councillor for one ward and I walked the whole ward. I walked it twice. I wore a pair of shoes out. I couldn't do anything for a month afterwards. Without the feet on the ground, without the help and without the donations, if we had had donations earlier in this campaign, we could have stood 30 more candidates. People donate to the bigger parties, but this is an important party and it's an important issue.
Well, I'd like help getting leaflets out and getting the people of St. Helens to recognise that England is important to them and their constitution. And if people can come and help us to do that, all well and good.
Yeah, no, again, I second that. Particularly in Chorley, we want the Mormon community to support us, right? We support Christians, right? There's only one group of people in Christendom that I don't like, and that's Jesuits, right? Go and read their oath, they're not nice people. Roman Catholics are fine, but constitutionally they're restricted, right? We are a Protestant nation, whether you like it or not. And at the end of the day, Mormons align with us, Christians align with us. We want to make sure that we have to fight for the heritage of our nation, and our nation is England, and our nation is one nation under God, and that is the Christian laws and the Christian world. So we just want to make sure that people get it. Again, for Brett Fruin, he needs as much support as you can get. There's lots of people who want to go out and help him and deliver his leaflets. We're getting lots of support from the standing in the parks, the yellow borders, who were fantastic. And again, we supported all them people. So now we're asking them to give us some support there. We're for you. We're not against you. We're not a normal political party. We're constitutionalists.
Okay, and where can people find out more information?
www.englishconstitutionparty.com.
Wonderful. And shall we wrap up there, gentlemen?
Nice. Yeah.
Thank you very much.